Hey guys, I don't know if anybody's in here just yet. I'm quite a bit early, but I'm trying to get the actual video itself to finish uploading. So I'm here making some tea, and if you join in, just let me know and drop a comment and say hello in the comment section so I know you're here. I can schedule for this thing. Hey guys, I'm here. I'm trying to actually upload the video where I did a complete presentation of the book, or not the whole book, but the beginning of it. So I guess when you guys get here, just say hello. I'm still relatively new to figuring out the live process. So we will get started soon. Give everybody a few more minutes to come in. Part of the reason why it takes a while for me to get videos uploaded is because I have not upgraded my cell phone yet. And while many are getting ready for the highly anticipated new iPhone, I am still rocking the 7S. so, so uploading the videos gets to be quite a bit of a pain sometimes. Um, but how are you guys doing? How's everyone? It's been a little bit since I was able to come live. I'm trying to see, make sure I can see comments as they come in. I'm really, really excited to share this because as I started digging into this book, even in the very, very beginning, quite a bit was kind of coming out, and it kind of sheds a whole different perspective on Shanann, possibly where her mindset was. So I started out just kind of wanting to know a little bit more about the book that she was reading because I'd never seen it and I'd only seen it with this case. And so I was like, oh, let's just, let me just check this out. And as I started reading, it was definitely, it'll be interesting to see where, in fact, like how far along in the book she got and when she actually started it. Um, so again, I know it's a bit of a pain when you guys get in here and there's not anything up on the screen. I just haven't quite got there yet. I'm really, really sorry. I'm trying to get this thingamajig to upload and it just wants to take its natural time. Um, does anybody have any questions to start with? I only have about 3 of you in here. 4. There we go. We're coming. I don't want anybody to feel like they're missing out on anything either. I'm trying to work a little bit more. I've been working at it for about 30 minutes trying to get the content to upload. I've tried to upload it about 4 times now, and it's certainly taking its time. I just don't want it to freeze out our live stream. All right, let's see. I'm here. Got this going. I will say, so I can go ahead and just kind of give you guys a little insight to part 4. I know I've advertised it. I have had every intention, and I hate that word, but every intention of getting part 4 out like 2 weeks ago. Um, and it has just been one thing after another. And I go back and as I'm editing my videos, I go back and I rewatch them because I want to make sure that if you're watching them and if there were any questions that may come up while you're watching the videos, then that go ahead and I try to address as many questions within the video as I can. I love to have discussions, and that's why I like, seriously, guys, when you get in, just be like, hey, so I can see you here in the comments because I see a little eyeball looking at me with the number 7. And hey, hi, Enchanted. Oh, see, this is what I'm saying. It makes me feel like I'm not here by myself. um, you know, I just started into it, and I was going to read it in its entirety, then do the synopsis and post it. But as I was reading it, so much with the case had started coming out in it that I was like, whoa, we're going to have to take this. And so I'm not going to go page by page, but I am, in fact, reading the book um, all the way through and just kind of showing you some things that have really come out for me. And I made this really nice little video, and it goes through it. It's only like 12 minutes long, and I figured we would watch the video and then have a discussion. That way, if there's any questions you have, then then I can answer them. And for whatever reason, this thing, let's see, share, it says share video file, but I don't know. Hold on, I'm getting there, guys. See, you can hear the video. All right, let's see. Oh, no. Is it Jean? Is that how you pronounce it, or is it just Jean? Good morning. It just hit afternoon here for us. We've got the hurricane coming. It's creeping its way up here to us, so not really worried about it. At least I'm not. But I know a lot of people here in Florida either on their way. Hopefully, they've already evacuated, but if not, then that they're hunkering down and they're good to go. I am essentially what I'm trying to do is figure out how in the world to share this with you, because I've tried to upload it to YouTube and it is either taking forever or not wanting to work. So bear with me. Have any of you read the book yet? I know Enchanted says she was wanting to, but hadn't had a chance to. Let's see. It's fun, right? There we go. All right, let's see. Let's try this again. I feel like I've done this before and it was easier just to do it direct. Upload a video. Here we go. Next. Okay. I think I found a shortcut to uploading it, so it's working on it again. As soon as it uploads, we'll definitely jump right into the video, and then that way we can actually have some fun discussions. Anything going on fun with anybody? Anything exciting? I know this channel can get a little serious when it comes to some of the topics, but we all have good stuff too, right? I know that I shared yesterday that my oldest got to do his first have his first meetings with the deans of like four very prestigious schools here in the United States, and it was just as a mom, it was extremely exciting. Um, let's see. Right, I'm refreshing YouTube again, see if it's there. And let's see. Thanks, guys, for being patient. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate you being here. Let's see. It still says pending. Okay, so we're at 54%. Yay! So we're getting 68. Oh my goodness, it's coming. It's almost there. So great. Again, this is going to just be a short video. And then if you have any questions, I'm actually going to take notes as I listen to it again, because there was something, I'm actually in a finance course, or financial course, I should say, at the moment. And something I saw last night in one of the presentations was just like, wow, it just really stood out. And it's something I think we should definitely take into consideration when we're talking about the Watts case. Let's see, Enchanted. Let's see if Chris had ever gotten to read. Oh, you know, so I've wondered that too. And I know that the book was found in the box that it came in the trash can, but I don't know, like, I would genuinely have to go back and see, like, did they disclose if it was unopened and they had to open the package, or was it like he opened the package and then it got thrown in there? The flip side to that is I wonder if in fact Kessinger was there cleaning up, if she saw the book, and that, like, there's so many pieces in this case where it. Mm, just when you think you want to go down one, like you want to go to one angle, you almost, if you're going to stay objective with it, you have to go to the other. And it makes it extremely difficult because there are so many areas where I could totally see Kessinger showing up at the house unexpected, thinking that he is leaving his wife, and he's already told her and tried to push her away, and she's not listening, and she shows up again, and then all it just breaks loose. So let's see. It's just a thought that stays with me quite a bit with this case, is the whether or not Kessinger was the one that went off. Yeah, Bossy Pants, I know what he said in his prison interview, and I'll be honest with you, I really wish that we could actually see the prison interview, because the agents that went in there actually told him that they were not going to release it. And she took a picture of him, which is the picture that allegedly was the one that we were given. Um, and then they made it clear that he was being audio and video recorded. And we can easily, and I know ATS News and CDT have already gone extensively through that breakdown, but as far as that confession goes, and if you listen to some of the stuff he says, like, I would give anything, to almost anything, to be able to just see his facial expressions and his body language when he is answering these questions. In one of the videos that I've got in the mix of being worked on, I bring that back up, and that's simply because I question if someone was behind him, not physically holding his hands, but whether someone else was doing it or someone was behind him. I have the hardest time, like, with that. I just wonder if, I just wonder if someone else was there. Um, okay, so YouTube is running their checks on it right now. And as soon as it gets done, I'm going to turn around and share my full screen and we will watch this video together. Let me tell Alexa to turn her music off in my house. Hold on just a second. Alexa, stop. I don't think Chris wanted to save his marriage, so no point to read the book. Chris already made up his mind. Why kill him? Probably the dumbest thing he's ever done. Yeah, I mean, I think that's, if in fact he did it by himself, which is quite possible, and we'll talk more. Like, that's definitely the more, one of the things I've always said, and um, I mean, my husband has mentioned it. He's like, why don't you just go back to the root of everything? And when you get back to that, you really can't. It's one of those things, until you've lived in it, you really don't realize or recognize that person. And so it's quite possible um, that he really did do all of this. Um, I'm not 100% bought into that he did this. Um, him killing Shanann, I can see, you know, if in fact he thought she killed the kids, like if he thought that's what happened and he snapped on her, that does make sense. No one wants to say it, and I'm not saying that that's what happened, because frankly, I have not seen enough evidence um, to really warrant that, and I'm still digging. So that's why I've never come out and just been like, this is my theory. It's because every time you start down one theory or you start down believing a confession, you have to pay attention to the evidence that's there or that's not there, and ask the tough questions. And so, did Chris want to read the book? Maybe he didn't. I mean, he was an introvert. He was like a little nerd, but um, it kind of goes back to, I mean, she was reading hers on her Kindle. She ordered him a book. Um, we don't even think about that, but for some people, that's it's completely different personality. Um, I love to hold an actual book, and so even when I was started reading this book, I physically bought the book, and then I also have Audible from Amazon, and so I I'm very much a tangible. I like to have it in my hand, and some people are not. So it's very quite possible he just tossed the book and wasn't even into it by then. I definitely think we all have questions about what in the world in the last 72 hours boiled over to get to the worst case scenario. So let me see. All right, it looks like the video is ready. So I am going to see if I can pull it up.
Hey guys, welcome and welcome back.
Sorry. Let's see. Escape pulse. Let's see. Okay, guys, hold on. I'm working on the video.
Hey guys.
Here we go. All right, I'm going to share my screen with you. We'll watch the video. Like I said, I'm going to take a few notes myself, just as something I do with each one of my videos, probably why it takes forever to get one published. And don't hesitate. If you have any questions, jot them down and we'll go back through them and we'll discuss it, okay? Let's see. Share screen. I'm just going to share the whole screen. I don't have anything. Okay. I don't think. Let's see. All right. Here we go. All right. So let's go to
back to the house huddle. Something I've been working on behind the scenes has been reading and preparing a synopsis of the book Shanann bought for Chris right before the murders. The link below in the description is a direct link where you may purchase the book. I have it both in hardback as well as on Audible. Amazon was pretty quick to ship. As with previous videos, I will be sharing and discussing the content, the case, as well as personal stories and opinions. So let's get started. Hold Me Tight, written by Dr. Sue Johnson, synopsis by The House Huddle. Many who have joined in on the dive into the Watts case have seen.
Okay, I'm pausing it just for a second because what I see, I'm trying to make sure is what you're seeing because I don't want you to miss out on any of this. Are you being able to see the screen like right now? You're able to see the book and Chris and Shanann. Will you just drop a yes in the comments for me?
This book, Amazon was pretty quick to ship. As with previous videos, I will be sharing and discussing the content, the case, as well as personal stories and opinions. So let's get started. Hold Me Tight, written by Dr. Sue Johnson, synopsis by The House Huddle. Many who have joined in on the dive into the Watts case have seen this book title floating around the channels on YouTube as it's seen in this evidence photo. It's, in my opinion, a symbol of Shanann's Hail Mary to save her marriage prior to the murders. It's my personal belief that you can learn a lot from what a person reads, especially when a personal improvement is involved. A book is a magical opportunity to escape, reflect, self-assess, or even fantasize. Sometimes it's just simply a book, but I will share my opinion here. Simply from my own personal experience and those close to me, when relationships are rocky, we tend to educate ourselves on how to fix or adjust what could be wrong. Getting married and blending a family, you have to buy the book. There is a book like there is a Google search. Have a question? Society today typically goes straight to Google. As a medical professional, it drives us absolutely crazy. What's the most accessible form of therapy? A book or an audio book? I mean, it's even more private than going into a doctor's office. It doesn't require an appointment or a sitter. Give or take your personal satisfaction with the search results, you may opt to take it one step further and schedule an appointment with a doctor or a healthcare professional. So with that, I do want to make a few things very clear as we are going to be discussing several health topics on this channel. Number one, I am not an advocate for Dr. Google. If you or someone you know may be having difficulties with any form of a health-related issue, I do encourage you to seek the proper medical care and treatment or encourage others to do the same. Number two, the scientific information given will be in direct quotes from the book and should be taken as it is read from a book. You are more than free to look up Dr. Sue Johnson's credentials and determine your own course as it's a personal decision and not reflective of this channel. Number three, this is an in-depth synopsis of a book that was discovered during the course of a criminal investigation. It has been identified as being purchased by the victim who evidently was seeking suggestions and essentially helped to rekindle a troubled marriage. Number four, this synopsis is for entertainment purposes as it's related to the case, as well as an honest opinion of a reader who purchased both the hard and audio copy of the book. That being said, it's my hope that through this synopsis, I encourage you to think on a deeper level than the socially accepted and pushed narrative, that you will find something positive to take away from the book, or at the very least, enjoy some case-related discussion that isn't for or against any one particular family. In addition, maybe we have some topic discussion that's needed to raise awareness around the world about the faux events and the very real decisions that are made by humans, and in this case, with the most horrendous outcomes. Opening credits. Dr. Sue Johnson begins by offering examples of reviews from patients and clients stating how much this emotionally focused therapy, or EFT, has changed relationships for the better by designing a system to rediscover bonding. It does have an online program as well, which I found interesting due to the year of the case being 2018, in our country having not yet experienced COVID or the lockdowns. This is one that couples can do together and in their own homes. There is a link posted in the description below, and it dives into the science of attachment and discovering a connection beyond the physical realm. We're going to call her Dr. Sue, but she begins with the introduction by discussing where she grew up and how her focus as a teenager was the relationship between her parents. They were separated for 20 years, yet she recalls seeing her father grieve her mother profoundly. She vowed back then to never get married, but of course, ultimately, she did. This began her journey into counseling and psychology. She, she has a doctorate in psychology from the University of British Columbia, Vancouver. Dr. Sue speaks of reaching a point in her professional career where she felt all of her training was insufficient given the problems she experienced more and more associated with troublesome couples. She states, and I quote, "They didn't care about insight into childhood relationships. They didn't want to be reasonable or learn to negotiate, and they certainly didn't want to be taught rules of fighting effectively. Love, it seemed, was all about non-negotiables." She goes on to state that you can't bargain for compassion and connection. She ultimately designed EFT in a research project to develop scientific results. Dr. Sue does discuss how many originally did not support her theory and goes into more detail about the scientific journey. If this piques your intellectual interest, I do suggest reading the book. Those who didn't support her stated that adults are, quote unquote, too dependent on their spouses and need to learn to stand on their own 2 feet, end quote. Being too connected, being too connected wrecked marriages. Something of interest that stood out to me was her mentioning Dr. Spock. Remember the baby doctor? Dr. Johnson so strongly disagrees with Dr. Spock in the sense of Dr. Spock's theory is that picking up a crying child creates a weakling. And she's so firmly against it that she describes it as quote unquote dead wrong. And she goes on to just explain a little bit more about the controversy along with that. But if you think about it, Dr. Spock, who tends to align a little bit more with the baby-wise approach, in my opinion, and I know that is extremely controversial, especially within this case, because Shanann mentions that she had the girls on a schedule and she used baby-wise. Now, it also says that you have to recognize and admit that you're an adult and are emotionally attached to your partner as a child is to their parents for soothing, nurturing, and protection. So the EFT approach is that essentially adults still have the same innate needs that they typically would get from their parents towards their spouse.
Something that I want to just share real quick with that thought, and I was going to wait until the end, but it's really coming through right now, and that is that is the whole concept of, can you imagine if as a baby you are taught your behaviors through that need for that emotional nurturing protective connection, and it's really, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out how to say it without it coming out too one-sided, but it's like there's a need for discipline for children, but at what point as adults, like you have to not it goes into not parenting your spouse, and parenting your spouse equates more to abuse than we see it from the perspective of discipline when we look at kids. So I'm not sure if that's coming out right, but one of the common issues that you hear about is when a couple gets married is feeling like they're being parented, like the husband's acting more like the dad than a husband and the mom's, especially for single parents. I know that's something we've dealt with ourselves, um, because you're so used to parenting that learning to be a spouse is different. And I mean, I don't necessarily know that that applies to Shania and Chris because they were together for a while. However, if you look at it through the context of she was at a really dark place, and then here comes Chris, and so that bond came through not necessarily through them having common interests and things like that, but it was he was nurturing, he was protective, he was giving her all of these parental needs essentially that made her feel safe and secure, and it grew from there. So I would be really interested to see an experiment or some research gathered from like the state of a relationship or the state of two individuals when they entered into their relationship and what their marriage looks like at, say, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 years. I think that would be really interesting. So, anyway, just a thought. Let's go back to the video. Hold on. Oops, I'm going to keep removing stuff. I'm not trying to. Hold on.
Now, this can be very argumentative opinion, and I think the jury is still out on this for me, because I can say from a personal experience that there are negatives for both approaches. One example that comes to mind is when my oldest was almost 2, and not talking beyond saying mama and essentially the names of the adults like nanny, papa, etc. I took him to his pediatrician for a checkup and for an evaluation. And she right then and there performed her own experiment while she was gathering information from me. She placed the sippy cup on the counter of, just like up out of his reach. And while she was still talking to me, he pointed to the cup, and I just reached up and handed him the cup. I didn't think anything of it. Pediatrician stopped me right then and there in the middle of our conversation, and she explained that what I was dealing with was learned behavior, and after a full assessment, I was given my assignment to return home with this toddler in this sippy cup. Toddler was to have breakfast as usual, which included his milk, so that his needs were met sufficiently. Then a sippy cup filled with juice or milk was placed inside on the counter but out of his reach. He had to say the word cup. Now, mind you, she ran him through a battery of tests at the office, and it was very well known that he was able to communicate, mom, grandma, nanny, those types of things. So he could say dog. I mean, he had a vocabulary, but it was one of those things where he wouldn't use words for everything. There was a lot that we just did for him, just out of instinct, I guess, is the best way to explain it. But the experiment said that he had to say the word cup before he could have it. Does this sound familiar? Those who question the whole cry it out method and self-soothing, don't go off on me just yet. I'll admit I was concerned he would think I was the meanest mama ever, but I held out like she said. He would walk over to the counter and point to the cup. I would say cup. He'd walk away. Then he would return, a bit fussy, and I'd say cup. Then the full-on toddlerisms took over. I'll spare you the whole story, but 3 hours later, he finally ran over to the counter and screamed, cup! I gave him his cup, and boy, he was just so happy. The point of the story is that an experiment is only as good as the data collected. While I delayed his getting his cup, his needs were already met, so this was a want. He had direct interaction with me, and need versus want was established, thus leading us to more scenarios like this for personal development. Parenting looks different with every generation, but it also looks the same. Or maybe it is the same, but looks differently because we are all more subject to outside opinions. What are your thoughts? Have you ever found yourself sharing your opinion online and then find yourself doing the opposite in real life? Is this something you go back to social media and quote unquote correct? Or do you just detach from social media in those real moments? EFT focuses on identifying and transforming the key moments that foster an adult loving relationship. The recovery rate is stated at 75% and recognized by APS as the empirically approved form of marriage therapy. Both military and public service organizations have shared this communication science to aid with professional relationships as well. She then goes into describing each section of the book and how the chapters are broken down. For the purpose of this channel, it's my plan to offer an overview synopsis of the book, not necessarily a page by page, and share with you if I have found any evidence that Sheehan was attempting to implement any of these suggestions during the weeks or months leading up to the murders. The author concludes the introduction with a tone of hope and inspiration, stating a quote by Erica Shaw: "Love is really worth fighting for, being brave for, and risking everything for. And the trouble is, if you don't risk anything, the risk is even greater. Let's discuss."
All right, guys. So that takes us back to the discussion. Let's see. All right, Jean, I don't believe Shanine killed the babies. Remember Chris's interview, he said that the last time I'm tucking my babies in. What does that mean? Furthermore, Shanine's phone was off. Goodness. You know, like I said, I am not at all saying that I feel like she did. I don't. Like, I could 98% rule out that is even a possibility. And I say that because just as much as people try to pick apart one thing here and there that they see on social media by her, I can come back and give a rebuttal for just about every single one of them. I was my son and I, my 16-year-old, we've practically grown up together, and so I'm very transparent with him about some of these issues. I mean, he's getting ready to start dating and all the things, and so the other day we were just talking about it, and he's very much interested in true crime and forensics and things like that, and so just a little something we share together. But we were just discussing social media and how, with this case especially, I've been seeing posts lately where it is just one thing after another about, oh my gosh, I can't believe she posted that the girls were sick, or why was she always posting that they were in the hospital, and and they always go to, oh my gosh, she had Munchausen syndrome, and it's like, or or her family lived on the other side of the country, and she was just very much a young mom in tune with social media. And I can tell you, anytime that my children have been extremely sick, I'm a firm believer in prayer. And I mean, I can't equate that to why she posted what she posted, but I can tell you that, when my son broke his arm, I posted it. It wasn't that I didn't pay attention to him or that I wasn't taking care of him. It was that I had a moment to share with those who are connected with me, and ask for prayer. And it works. I have two, very healthy children who have gone through some very miraculous healings, and I firmly believe that has a lot to do with prayer chains and things like that. So I think as a society, it's I don't understand why in death we're so critical of things, and then the reality is, if any one of us, or any one of these people, I should say, who are going off the deep end with their comments, if any one of them would just take a scroll through their Facebook posts, I guarantee you're going to find friends on your Facebook post who have taken a picture of their kid that's sick, who has posted about something bad that's happened. I mean, is there a push for people not to do that anymore? There is. But at the same time, who are we to say who their outlet is? Most people who are emotionally, verbally, and mentally abused cry out the loudest and they get ignored or they get made fun of or they get insulted. And so then they continue to suffer in silence. And people always ask the question, well, why? And why'd you stay? And why this and why that? And it's just like, just take a look. This case shows us so much of humanity and how quick to judge um, this society has become. So, Jean, I don't believe that she did it. I know that he said it was the last time that he was tucking them in. And I can't help but wonder if sometimes when he says those things, it's like he knew that Shanann knew about that dinner because of the credit card. And he knew that A, he had to get up and go to work the next morning, and B, that there's a pretty good chance those kids were not going to be home when he got home, because if Shanann got home and realized that something had happened or put it all together that he's, had a mistress, then she would have left. So that's still very plausible. So there's not, like with Chris's interviews, you really have to listen to the context of what he's asking. And because that confession that everyone goes back to from February is so cut up, like we don't have that full confession. So what we have heard is not the full thing. That's not the entire confession. If you don't believe me, go through it like minute by minute, and you will be able to tell where it gets spliced up, because the way what he answers is not the question that was asked. It gets rolled into the next one. Again, ATS News, I know, did very thorough, like re-listen back through that confession. And I was in the chat on that quite a bit. And I mean, he says things in there. And that's why I want to see that video, that visual. I know that I think it was Plunder, great channel, that I think she was the one that got the actual video released of Kessinger in her interview that we've been asking for years. And frankly, it's about time that they start releasing this one that they have with Chris, because I've called out to the prison. I have spoken with someone directly, because on their website, it shows he's not there. It shows he's not incarcerated. There is no inmate by his name. And so the public has every right to log into the prison and check on inmate status. And I was told that due to the case, it's been removed off their website so that it's, they're not getting inundated. And part of me believes that. And then the other part of me is like, what the heck? Like, I don't know. I had somebody on my channel make a comment the other day, or maybe it was like a week. And like, hold on. I don't know if hang on just a second. I haven't noticed the clock switching back. Like, I haven't noticed the clock switching back, or forward, but I'll have to go back and look at that for sure. I think there's a lot of suspicion around this case. I understand not wanting to maybe view them or those types of things, but the fact that there have been other cases where the condition of the victims, I mean, just go to Jodi Arias and look at, you can see those pictures, and those are horrendous, and they're still out there for everybody. Her full on, everything that they hid about Kessinger baffles me. Like, there's just so much that's hidden in this case. And so they have stirred up their own world of suspicion and then trying to act like, you know, trying to play the victim themselves as far as law enforcement, um, in regards to this case. Like, I don't understand why the public won't let it go. Well, the public won't let it go because we have questions, and some of this stuff doesn't make any sense. And the only other thing I can think of is it's one of two things: A, it did not happen, which I don't believe that, or B, like it is 100 times worse than we could have ever imagined. Um, and so now we're just kind of like going off of the book stuff a little bit, but I just there's things that when I'm reading into this book and we talk about the backlash of like baby wives and social media, um, her wanting the kids on a schedule, like I just think back to, I mean, she was an older mom than I was. I was a young mom. And then by the time I had my second son, I was a little bit older. I was mid 20s. And I always had tons of advice coming in from all over the place, from family, friends, other moms, church members. Um, but I still did my own thing. I still researched and read, and whether someone believes in it or not, or it was good for their family or not, that's that's okay. It's everybody's choice. But I don't think that Shanine deserves to be crucified. I mean, A, she's not here to defend herself, and secondly, again, it's kind of a double standard that in death she's guilted for all these things that she's done, but yet there are many people living today that post all over social media all the time, and they literally do the exact same things that she's doing. So um, I think there's tons of lessons to learn about this case, and that's why I posted um, what I did. And I wish, let's see, I was going to, I thought about going through like an older video with you guys and just answering any questions that you had from that one. Um, I did want to share with you. All right, so I created a short.
So what I would like
here we go. I created a short and I posted it, and it hits on a topic because this month is Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month, and reviewing this case and listening and looking and observing through everything, um, unfortunately, Shanann and the kids are gone. They're no longer with us. And I say us, they're no longer with her family. Um, but people seem to put them in a box. And I get it that, they may, this story in this case may be in a box, but there's a lot we can learn from that box. But what we can't do is take the living and put them in a box. So we cannot put the Watts family in a box and say this is who they are. They're never going to change. This is no. There are conversations and there are interviews that took place when they didn't know the story themselves, and then they've just been hammered. The Ruseks, they have. I wholeheartedly believe that family is grieving on so many levels. And that is what we see that comes out, whether it's animosity, whether it's anger, whether it's hurt, whether it's happy memories. Um, and unfortunately, it's, sometimes it's not so friendly to the YouTubers. But you can't keep them in a box. They've got to be able to process through that grief. And so I'm going to show you this short, and then I I do want to touch on Jean's comment. She said, why NK got immunity was she directly involved. Or, I'm sorry, I firmly believe NK got, back up. Here we go. Talisa says, I firmly believe NK got immunity from the DA and her part was scrubbed from the case. That I do believe. That I do believe. And that, from everything I have read, and Scott Reich is a defense attorney out in Colorado. He has a YouTube channel, definitely worth checking out. And I can tell you that if in fact she did, she had to have been there. And for the love of goodness gracious, I wish they would just come out and say, yes, she was there. We have proof she was there. We have evidence that she was there. Come out and tell us she was granted immunity. Like, come out and tell us this stuff. Don't just act like she no longer even exists. Because the flip side to that is, did she, like, who is she? And sadly, I'm gonna, oh, it's so hard to do. Let's just assume she had nothing to do with it. Let's assume that she was a woman who fell madly in love with this man and she genuinely thought she found her soulmate and that this was all going to work out. And she had nothing to do with the murders. If that is the case, then the state of Colorado owes that woman a crap ton of money because they have destroyed her identity. And changing your name is not going to do anything when this case does not stop. It doesn't go away. There's not any answers. And so I don't know that I believe she actually got immunity more than I believe they may still be working a case. I will say that Frankie has commented on one of my videos or posts, and he has said they wanted to blame her so bad, but the evidence didn't allow it. They couldn't. And so I'm curious, naturally, still none of my business necessarily, but I am curious. Like, what the heck were you guys shown that proved to you she had nothing to do with it? Because everything that I have seen, even put back into context, even trying to read between the lines and the gray areas, there is no way that woman was not there at the house that morning and either saw something or was a part of it. There's no way. And, or, like I said before, she was the girlfriend that got possessive and he tells her that wife's coming home. She doesn't believe him and she shows up. And that's why her phone pings. So what, she just happens to call her friend Jim that we're not supposed to talk about. She just happens to call him, and what'd she do? Say, hey dude, what the heck? I thought he was leaving his wife. Like, I mean, could that potentially have been the conversation she had outside their house? I don't know. So I will say that on this channel, I have not dug into the evidence breakdown as much as like CDT and ATS News, and you will hear me refer to them a lot because in the beginning, that's who I followed. Like, when they started their channels, I had already been in the Watts channels for a while. And then when they started their channels, the quality of their research and their work, I don't always agree with everything that is said on their channels, but I feel like they've done due diligence with the investigative side of it. And so I really, for the sake of the channel, try to focus on social issues that we can learn from within the case. But I mean, it's always worth going back in and reading and rereading, because I would have preferred the trial too. Much like I think Scott Peterson deserves another trial. I need to hear in detail questioning and a cross examination of the people who have said that they saw Lacey that morning. I'm curious. So I don't know if you guys are watching that one. I did start featuring that on my Facebook page. I will start covering that um, when we hear more about that case. But I would have liked to have seen a trial even in this one, because there has to be proof. There has to be proof that unfortunately their bodies were discovered. It has to be proof that this is how he did it. And what he says does match. Like, you have to have the confession match the evidence. None of his confessions match the evidence. And that is the part that I don't understand. Yeah, Priya, I can't disagree. Yeah, I agree, Gene. And Unmasked is another great creator who did a great Unmasking NK series. And like, I'm going to tell you that I went in when I was first getting ready to create the Reasonable Doubt series or video. I went in and went back to Unmasked, because Unmasked created such a great case as to, raising all these questions as to why in the world was Kessinger there. And whenever I went back to essentially like argue as you would if you were a defense attorney and poke holes in those questions, when I tell you I couldn't, like, you can't. You can try, but you can't. And so I would have loved to have seen this. And I hope it does go to trial. I hope at some point, um, there is a trial, or there are other charges that come in some form. Um, I agree, Talisa. If you study the case, there is reasonable doubt that he acted alone. And that is the number one reason why I say if there was a trial and no confession, he would have walked. He may have walked with a huge umbrella of suspicion, but he would not have been convicted. And that was the stupidest thing on his part. Um, and I don't believe that he just went in there and spilled his guts because, he just felt so horrible about it. I don't. No. Maybe if he had only killed Shanann, and I don't excuse that by any means, but maybe if he'd only done that. But we're talking the kids too. And everything that I saw with the kids, or that we saw with the kids, was loving and doting. The only other question I have is, I know she did baby wise and I know they had an early bedtime, but why? Why? Like, gosh, I have it saved. I'm gonna keep talking, but I'm gonna look too. I have it saved somewhere about, there is a picture on Netflix, or on Netflix, if you've watched the Netflix documentary. Um, and it's in the discovery as well. She says something along the lines of, he's never acted like this. The only time he'd act like this is if there was someone else, or something to that effect. And it's like, if you read what she texts, it certainly implies that there potentially was something else going on with someone previously. Does this mean that he physically cheated? No. And I think that I'm kind of giving away some of this stuff for another video, but I really think that Cindy knew that he had an emotional connection to another woman. And I don't think you can judge her for that, but she knew that there was an emotional connection to another woman. And I really think that emotional connection was Kessinger. There's no way that this stuff escalated the way it did, to the extent that it did, and the timeline does not match up. So, and I've got a very extensive timeline, like a running timeline, where I go back to it and have to step away, get some, get some clarity, and then go back into it. But they definitely knew each other. much longer. And I question if she sold that house so quickly in North Carolina, not because of debt, not because of Dirty South, not because of anything like that, but because he was already out in Colorado. And if in fact they were already having issues, those are things that I'm curious about. Like when she was planning the wedding, were there issues? Um, were there what is they I read or I heard on one channel that she had planned like the whole wedding. And, I get it. Some women plan it all the time. Some husbands want to have some say in it. And I don't know. Something just, I'm still working on that. But that is an avenue that I am venturing down currently, like behind the scenes. And I do have an upcoming trip, and I'm excited about it, not because of what other people have done before and things like that. It's more um, A, to pay respects, and B, just to see the culture. Because I used to live in North Carolina myself, and my oldest son, I'm going to take him up there and kind of show him around. Like that was where I moved to right out of high school. So it was a very small town. And, when you look at it on a map or you look at it in the pictures, yeah, it looks great. It's pretty, it's cute, it's dainty, it's whatever. But those things only work to your benefit if you have a good job, because you're either doing really, really well or you're struggling. And so, anyway, there are many different angles, many different things to think about. I'm going to play you the snippet from part 4. It is part of the video. Um, I have done some extensive research on the furniture found in the home. So this part 4 is not going to be just like a here's the old pictures, here's the new pictures, and it's not like that. I actually contacted some furniture stores. I actually out in Colorado. I've done some digging. I contacted some locally, got some numbers on some things, and I think you'll be surprised at the outcome of what's all in the video. And that's why it's taking a little bit of time, because every time I go back in to edit it, I'm I'm finding something else and I'm adding to it. So part 4 is coming. Here's the snippet that will wrap up part 4. Um, Talisa, I feel like I've seen that NK lived in. I don't even like calling it NK. That Kessinger lived in North Carolina at one time. Um, I did just get in touch with. I can't give it all away because I don't want to speak on it too soon, but I think I may have a pretty exciting interview coming up with someone that presented very, very early on in the case with some very significant information. Um, and yeah, but it's coming. I have I've just really had to prioritize my family, and coaching is a job, but it's also I'm coaching teenagers, so I no longer just have my kids; I have the whole team, and so that's taking a little bit of time away. To Lisa, I have something on Kessinger's friend with the rehab, and it's public knowledge, so I need to post that too soon. But it all goes back to um, like it all ties in together, and so there's no doubt there's more to this story. Um, See, Chris told his dad he was leaving Cheyenne, told Kessinger he was getting to the house. All seemed okay. Then a few weeks later, killed everyone. So I don't. Here's the thing. I agree. I agree, but I don't know that it's. I don't know that it's what we thought it was, because he very. So here's a part that kind of throws it all back on Chris. or a thought that could throw it all back on Chris. Chris told his dad that he was leaving Shanann. Fine. No big, and the way his parents felt about her, no biggie. And that he wanted to be with Kessinger. That's not a big deal. He was telling Kessinger he was going to get a 2-bedroom apartment because he couldn't really afford a house. All of that seems fine. I agree. Then a few weeks later, he kills everyone. Well, what happens when you go to rent an apartment? They run your credit. They were getting ready for another bankruptcy. This was going to be their second bankruptcy. And I go into this a little bit more on part 4. But I don't know that money was the reason for it. Money and identity point more towards Shanann than it does Chris. However, I don't think we can dismiss the significance of Chris being Chris always being quiet, Chris always pretending like everything was fine, letting her do her thing. There is something very cowardice about that. It's one thing to be submissive and to be supportive and things, in the positives. But if you are denying and just telling yourself that I'm okay with this and this isn't a problem and this isn't an issue, and you just keep pushing that down, and then you finally get ready to leave, and suddenly now you can't leave because your credit's in the hole now, because beforehand it was Shanann's. Now this house is in Chris's name. So if you think about it in those terms, if it was so bad he couldn't even get out and go get an apartment with his 2 kids, but it still doesn't make any sense as to, it just takes me back to that line like you guys mentioned earlier where he said he knew it was going to be the last time he put him to bed. I don't think when he said it was the last time he was going to put him to bed like that it was because they were going to die. I think it was he knew that Shanann was coming home, and Shanann had found out about Kessinger, and he really feared she was going to take the kids. This pushes far more into a more extensive situation, and there is civil law that would actually protect against it and would find Kessinger not guilty of anything. So if you're looking at it through civil versus criminal, those laws are different. And we'll definitely talk more about that next time. I have got to get ready to wrap this up. Drop any last questions that you may have. If there's anything across the channel that you've seen, I would love to hear just your feedback. I'm really hoping to get on a posting schedule, and we'll definitely be pushing this synopsis videos series out a little bit more quickly. I may not do a live with each one of them, but I will go chapter by chapter or a couple chapters at a time and do the video like I did today. And that way, when we do come back together for another live stream, then we can talk about those and watch those together and have an even more in-depth discussion, okay? So here's a snippet from part 4, and let's see. Oops. Let's see if I'm showing anything.
Just know that it's not up for other people to force you to keep reliving a mistake that you made in your past, or a moment in time where maybe you weren't up to someone else's expectation. You know what? If you're even watching this video, that means that you made it through. That means that you woke up this morning and you're still going, and that right here is a win. And some days, that's the only win you have, is that you woke up and you survived the day. But you know what? If you wake up again, you go after it. So I hope this will just open your eyes to this channel and this purpose, and understand that this
There we go. So I think for those who joined in a little bit later, I am going to replay the video that we did at the beginning. So if you just want to re-listen, you're more than welcome to. And then again, if any other questions come up, I'll still be here. I'll be answering questions in the comment sections. And I said it in the last live, and I try to keep these, yes, it's centered around a case, but it's still very real issues. And I very much enjoy the case discussion of it. I also just am very passionate about touching on the very relatable issues that that come out from this case, and that's really what has driven me with this. And with Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month being coming to an end here in September, if you're someone you're just having a rough time, you need somebody, you need a prayer, don't ever hesitate. Drop it. I don't care what video it is. Drop it in the comment, and I'll get it. And I promise you, I will say a prayer for you. And just sometimes I was actually telling my sister yesterday. Everybody says one day at a time, and well, sometimes it's one moment at a time. Got to get through this 5 minutes, and then you're gonna be okay. Get through this next hour, and you'll be good. And no, nobody wants to live their life like that all the time. But you know what? If it gets you to that next point and that next mark, then you just keep pushing. And so, with that, let's look at Talisa's comment again. When the DA said he killed him because of child support and alimony, I was like, no way. Yeah, I agree. Wholeheartedly, the moment I heard that, I called BS. There was no way that money meant that much to Chris. And that is discussed in my part 4, which will be here. I'm off work tomorrow as well, and we'll be trying to hammer out that video. I really hope to have it out tonight at the latest. I do have practice around 4 o'clock and a football game with the kids. But other than that, I'm really, really hoping to finish up everything with part 4, because I can't wait to hear your comments and what your thoughts are on that video and the information that's in it. So with that, I'm going to switch over to the actual video that, where did it go? How did I do it last time? Can't even remember how I did it. Well, I was going to show it again. Okay, here we go. Oh, no, not that one. Sorry. I'm reading messages too, guys. So let's see. It's not letting me do it. Okay, well, I'm sorry, guys. I was going to just share with you that video again, but now for whatever reason I'm having difficulties finding it. Let's see. Thank you. Tonight it's the varsity, so it's one of our biggest rivalry games. So like we actually get to go and just enjoy watching it tonight. But we have playoffs next week with my son, so that'll be a lot of fun. Okay, so I did find it, and I am going to play it again. Again, it's only like 12 minutes long, and you guys, I will see you next time. But here it is. Okay, let's do this. Oh, hang on. No, not trying to do that. This thing cracks me up. Y'all, I'm gonna have to watch a YouTube video just on how to do this a little more smoothly, so that it's not. Oh, I guess I was sharing my screen the whole time. Here we go. Share it again. Full screen, share. All right, here we go. Here's the video.
Hey guys, welcome and welcome back to the House Huddle. Something I've been working on behind the scenes has been reading and preparing a synopsis of the book Shanann bought for Chris right before the murders. The link below in the description is a direct link where you may purchase the book. I have it both in hardback as well as on Audible. Amazon was pretty quick to ship. As with previous videos, I will be sharing and discussing the content, the case, as well as personal stories and opinions. So let's get started. Hold Me Tight, written by Dr. Sue Johnson, synopsis by The House Huddle. Many who have joined in on the dive into the Watts case have seen this book title floating around the channels on YouTube as it's seen in this evidence photo. It's, in my opinion, a symbol of Shanann's Hail Mary to save her marriage prior to the murders. It's my personal belief that you can learn a lot from what a person reads, especially when a personal improvement is involved. A book is a magical opportunity to escape, reflect, self-assess, or even fantasize. Sometimes it's just simply a book, but I will share my opinion here. Simply from my own personal experience and those close to me, when relationships are rocky, we tend to educate ourselves on how to fix or adjust what could be wrong. Getting married and blending a family, you buy the book. There is a book like there is a Google search. Have a question? Society today typically goes straight to Google. As a medical professional, it drives us absolutely crazy. Uh, what's the most accessible form of therapy? A book or an audiobook? I mean, it's even more private than going into a doctor's office. It doesn't require an appointment or a sitter. Give or take your personal satisfaction with the search for results, you may opt to take it one step further and schedule an appointment with a doctor or a healthcare professional. So, with that, I do want to make a few things very clear as we are going to be discussing several health topics on this channel. Number one, I am not an advocate for Dr. Google. If you or someone you know may be having difficulties with any form of a health-related issue, I do encourage you to seek the proper medical care and treatment or encourage others to do the same. Number two, the scientific information given will be in direct quotes from the book and should be taken as it is read from a book. You are more than free to look up Dr. Sue Johnson's credentials and determine your own course as it's a personal decision and not reflective of this channel. Number three, this is an in-depth synopsis of a book that was discovered during the course of a criminal investigation. It has been identified as being purchased by the victim, who evidently was seeking suggestions and essentially helped to rekindle a troubled marriage. Number four, this synopsis is for entertainment purposes as it's related to the case, as well as an honest opinion of a reader who purchased both the hard and audio copy of the book. That being said, it's my hope that through this synopsis, I encourage you to think on a deeper level than the socially accepted and pushed narrative, that you will find something positive to take away from the book, or at the very least, enjoy some case-related discussion that isn't for or against any one particular family. In addition, maybe we have some topic discussion that's needed to raise awareness around the world about the faux events and the very real decisions that are made by humans, and in this case, with the most horrendous outcomes. Opening credits. Dr. Sue Johnson begins by offering examples of reviews from patients and clients stating how much this emotionally focused therapy, or EFT, has changed relationships for the better by designing a system to rediscover bonding. It does have an online program as well, which I found interesting due to the year of the case being 2018, and our country having not yet experienced COVID or the lockdowns. This is one that couples can do together and in their own homes. There is a link posted in the description below. And it dives into the science of attachment and discovering a connection beyond the physical realm. We're going to call her Dr. Sue, but she begins with the introduction by discussing where she grew up and how her focus as a teenager was the relationship between her parents. They were separated for 20 years, yet she recalls seeing her father grieve her mother profoundly. She vowed back then to never get married, but of course, ultimately, she did. This began her journey into counseling and psychology. She, she has a doctorate in psychology from the University of British Columbia, Vancouver. Dr. Sue speaks of reaching a point in her professional career where she felt all of her training was insufficient given the problems she experienced more and more associated with troublesome couples. She states, and I quote, "They didn't care about insight into childhood relationships. They didn't want to be reasonable or learn to negotiate, and they certainly didn't want to be taught rules of fighting effectively. Love, it seemed, was all about non-negotiables." She goes on to state that you can't bargain for compassion and connection. She ultimately designed EFT in a research project to develop scientific results. Dr. Sue does discuss how many originally did not support her theory and goes into more detail about the scientific journey. If this piques your intellectual interest, I do suggest reading the book. Those who didn't support her stated that adults are, quote unquote, too dependent on their spouses and need to learn to stand on their own 2 feet, end quote. Being too connected, being too connected wrecked marriages. Something of interest that stood out to me was her mentioning Dr. Spock. Remember the baby doctor? Dr. Johnson so strongly disagrees with Dr. Spock in the sense of Dr. Spock's theory is that picking up a crying child creates a weakling. And she's so firmly against it that she describes it as quote unquote dead wrong. And she goes on to just explain a little bit more about the controversy along with that. But if you think about it, Dr. Spock, who tends to align a little bit more with the baby wise approach, in my opinion, and I know that is extremely controversial, especially within this case, because Shanann mentions that she had the girls on a schedule and she used baby wise. Now, it also says that you have to recognize and admit that you're an adult and are emotionally attached to your partner as a child is to their parents for soothing, nurturing, and protection. So the EFT approach is that essentially adults still have the same innate needs that they typically would get from their parents towards their spouse. Now this can be very argumentative opinion, and I think the jury is still out on this for me. Because I can say from a personal experience that there are negatives for both approaches. One example that comes to mind is when my oldest was almost 2 and not talking beyond saying mama and essentially the names of the adults like nanny, papa, etc. I took him to his pediatrician for a checkup and for an evaluation. And she right then and there performed her own experiment while she was gathering information from me. She placed the sippy cup on the counter of, just like up out of his reach. And while she was still talking to me, he pointed to the cup, and I just reached up and handed him the cup. I didn't think anything of it. Pediatrician stopped me right then and there in the middle of our conversation, and she explained that what I was dealing with was learned behavior, and after a full assessment, I was given my assignment to return home with this toddler in this sippy cup. Toddler was to have breakfast as usual, which included his milk, so that his needs were met sufficiently. Then a sippy cup filled with juice or milk was placed inside on the counter but out of his reach. He had to say the word cup. Now mind you, she ran him through a battery of tests at the office, and it was very well known that he was able to communicate, mom, grandma, nanny, those types of things. So he could say dog. I mean, he had a vocabulary, but it was one of those things where he wouldn't use words for everything. There was a lot that we just did for him, just out of instinct, I guess is the best way to explain it. But the experiment said that he had to say the word cup before he could have it. Does this sound familiar? Those who question the whole cry it out method and self-soothing, don't go off on me just yet. I'll admit I was concerned he would think I was the meanest mama ever, but I held out like she said. He would walk over to the counter and point to the cup. I would say cup. And he'd walk away. Then he would return, a bit fussy, and I'd say cup. Then the full-on toddlerisms took over. I'll spare you the whole story, but 3 hours later, he finally ran over to the counter and screamed, cup! I gave him his cup, and boy, he was just so happy. The point of the story is that an experiment is only as good as the data collected. While I delayed his getting his cup, his needs were already met, so this was a want. He had direct interaction with me, and need versus want was established, thus leading us to more scenarios like this for personal development. Parenting looks different with every generation, but it also looks the same. Or maybe it is the same, but looks differently because we are all more subject to outside opinions. What are your thoughts? Have you ever found yourself sharing your opinion online and then find yourself doing the opposite in real life? Is this something you go back to social media and quote unquote correct? Or do you just detach from social media in those real moments? EFT focuses on identifying and transforming the key moments that foster an adult loving relationship. The recovery rate is stated at 75% and recognized by APS as the empirically approved form of marriage therapy. Most public service organizations have shared this communication science to aid with professional relationships as well. She then goes into describing each section of the book and how the chapters are broken down. For the purpose of this channel is I plan to offer an overview synopsis of the book, not necessarily a page by page, and share with you if I have found any evidence that Shania was attempting to implement any of these suggestions during the weeks or months leading up to the murders. The author concludes the introduction with a tone of hope and inspiration, stating, quote by Erica Shaw, love is really worth fighting for, being brave for, and risking everything for. And the trouble is, if you don't risk anything, the risk is even greater. Let's discuss.
All right. So for those of you who are still here, thank you so much for being here. I've really enjoyed it. Talisa, I hope you have a good day at work. And I will definitely get that, the next video out just as soon as I can. I want to make sure I'm doing it justice just because I feel like anytime like someone mentions a preview or something that they're going to do, you see somebody throw out another video. And I actually held back because I was like, oh, I don't want to just put out something when someone else just put out a similar content. But then when I see what they put out, I'm like, it was not at all where I was going with mine. So I am excited about it. It was nice to speak to some people out in Colorado regarding the furniture and just to have a better understanding of what that could have entailed. And I definitely look forward to having that discussion with you guys. So if no one has any other questions, I will be checking comments and everything throughout the day. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Would love to hear them. Any feedback, greatly appreciated. I'm still learning this whole StreamYard YouTube thing. And so hopefully the more I do it, the better I'll get. And with that, I will just sign off and say I hope you guys have a good afternoon. If you're experiencing the storm right now, I hope you stay safe. I know we are just now starting to get some wind and probably some rain. So I am probably about to go get soaking wet at this football game and cross country practice, but it shall be fun. Um, you guys have a good day. Thank you so much for being here. Bye, guys.